Good morning. My name is Dr. Paul Walton, and during this presentation, we're going to be talking about dealing with difficult conversations and conflicts. Thank you very much for joining me today. Difficult conversations are almost never about getting the facts right. They're about conflicting perceptions, interpretations, and values. This is a great quote from Dr. Stone. Later on in the presentation, I've got some resources to share with you. So that's at the end of the presentation for you to then follow up after this. So starting with the why, the difficult conversations and conflicts. Why we're going through this for today is to create an overall more positive and better workplace, to help bring staff closer together as a team, to improve communication between colleagues, to rectify and resolve differences of opinion, to help staff feel more valued, to ensure everyone is treated fairly and respectfully. So what happens if we don't have the difficult conversations or conflicts in the workplace? Because we want to have that positive and professional environment to work in, but if they aren't resolved, if they aren't created and organized, then what could potentially happen? Well, this could negatively impact employee well-being, overall less productivity for the company, for the team, the individuals, a decrease in staff morale. Avoiding those difficult conversations and conflicts will only get worse, and therefore the staff morale obviously will go down. An increase in negative emotional responses. So this could lead to outbursts or incidents in meetings, corridors, areas where people could raise the voice, could shout, could be visibly upset. Again, having these conversations is a great way to navigate and resolve all of that. And eventually could create a toxic workplace culture, divides, complaints, staff not working together, loss of harmony across the entire community. A reduction in collaboration. If people have differences of opinion, if they have conflicts and they don't have time to sit down, to talk, to listen, and to understand different viewpoints, then they don't want to work together. So again, that's another issue that could come from this. And a drop in staff retention. Eventually, if people don't want to work together, if they don't want to talk together, if they don't want to talk through the issues, then eventually in the workplace, people will have enough. And again, this could be one of the biggest factors leading into staff retention, is the fact that people aren't happy in their job. They don't feel valued. They don't feel that they're part of a team. They feel unhappy. And they don't think they can get their viewpoint across, and eventually it could impact your staff retention. So really, it's about having that conversation early, and hopefully the tips and the advice during this presentation will help you, give you some food for thought. So whenever you're in a conflict with someone, there's one factor that can make the difference between damaging your relationship and deepening it. The factor is attitude. So this is something we're going to talk about today. Is making sure that you follow these ideas, look at the research that I'm going to share with you, but also making sure that your attitude during these conversations, not only during the meeting, but the planning stage and the follow-up, remains professional, remains warm and compassionate throughout. So difficult conversations, advice and tips, how to plan the conversation. So we're going to look through different areas, different touch points, different pieces of research to see what advice is out of there. And then we're going to gather all of that up together in an overall summary. So again, looking at 8 points here, we can see change your mindset. So before the meeting, instead of getting worried, it's completely understandable that people would be apprehensive, that they would worry about a meeting, but could frame it positively, frame it as an opportunity, frame it as a constructive feedback or some experience that the people can go through inside of the meeting, or looking at it from an alternative solution. So it's important not just to kind of fill your head with negative thoughts about the meeting. Lots of times we worry about meetings, and then during and after the meeting, we can see that it turns into a positive. So it's very important to keep focused, to change your mindset, and really look at the fact that this is a positive experience and it's a good process to go through. Some people can go through a refocus exercise to breathe, collect your thoughts. They might have a few strategies that before the meeting, They have their own kind of approach to remain calm and to remain focused on the conversation at hand. So whatever works for you, and this could develop over time. If you've got some strategies that you use in the workplace, so for example, I knew someone who used to walk around a few minutes before different meetings, or have some quiet time, or to read through notes, whatever seems to work for you, build that time into your routine so that 10, 15 minutes before the meeting, you can then follow that routine to kind of center and relax yourself before the meeting itself. Plan ahead. So make notes on the different kind of situations and the outcomes that you kind of predict in the meeting. Look at the key points. Be flexible, simple, clear, direct, and neutral. All of these points you should be looking at in your notes to try and make them professional rather than personal. Be objective and really look at professionally what the issue is and make some key points. It isn't a script, a complete word for word script throughout the conversation. You could have a few key points that you refer to. This could include, a start or an end or a few things that you want to refer to. But conversation is very fluid, so it's very difficult to plan word for word. And quite often the other person in the conversation will go off script as well. So some key points are very useful, but be prepared that the conversation will flow and that you'll have to direct. You'll have to make sure that you can create a structure, and then you can keep the conversation on point throughout. Acknowledge your counterpart's perspective. One of the good points in this particular article is recognizing their point of view, what they believe the problem is. Sometimes you might have a meeting and they haven't had a chance to actually explain what their issue is. The best thing to do would be to be really clear on what they think their issue is. And then also kind of make sure you kind of re-emphasize this back to the person. Am I kind of hearing you correctly? Is this the actual issue that we're here to talk about? So making sure that everybody's clear on what they're going to talk about. Remember to be compassionate, to connect, understand, and show care. Again, going back to the quote about attitude, we don't want to have a meeting where emotions and tension can be high anyway, for people to come in and then have a lack of empathy or have a lack of compassion. We're here to resolve the issue, but we're here to bring the team together. We're here to care for one another in a professional environment and ensure that we can all move forward successfully. Slow down and listen. Use some of the active listening strategies, as mentioned previously, making sure that non-verbal cues are used through the meeting, making sure that you are paying attention and that they feel listened to. Give something back. This is an interesting point. So if the conversation puts the other person in a difficult spot, is there a positive? Is there an opportunity? Is there something that you can create to really give them a positive way forward for them? Even a small thing could make a big difference. So if it does put the person in a difficult spot, see it from their point of view. It can be very uncomfortable. And there might be one or two positives that you could create from that that can then really help the conversation. Reflect and learn. Make a quick note, what went well, what you could improve. As I mentioned, every time you go through this cycle, you'll write down different things that went well, other things that you can avoid. So if something's worked well, for example, in the way that you are writing notes or the way that you've created your key points, make a note of that, keep that, and then use it again in the next conversation. Another article, advice and training, will go through 10 tips here. So don't procrastinate to have conversation. Again, that comes up quite often. Have that conversation early. Plan your talking points, but don't write a speech. Again, that comes up quite often. Focus on the facts of the situation. Again, notice the fact that it's steering away from the behaviors and the personality of the person inside of the conversation and looking to more of the outcomes and the actual facts that have been shared in the situation. Consider the other person's perspective. Again, building in time to listen to that other person so they feel listened to, they feel heard and a part of the conversation. It's not a one-way kind of presentation of the person. It's not a one-way instruction. It's a two-way conversation. Create a comfortable environment. Now, this is a very important one. I honestly believe that, 10, 20% of the kind of the outcome could be determined by before the conversation starts by looking at other factors. And these factors could be time, it could be the environment, it could be how comfortable the situation is, noise, etc. So make sure that you consider the space in which you'll sit down, things to consider in a school. Are the chairs comfortable? Sometimes people have difficult conversations in primary class or a lower primary class and the chairs are too small. So an area where people can sit down, an area where they can have a desk to make some notes, an area where you won't be disturbed, where the noise can be kept down to a minimum. One of the areas I would look at is time. It's very difficult to have a rushed meeting before the start of the day. Try and plan the meeting later in the day or with enough buffer of time so that if the conversation takes the turn into a very productive space or a very difficult space, then you are not constantly looking at the time because you don't want to then have a follow-up conversation, which is even more difficult or have to deal with other things that arise because the conversation finished early. So write down a few things. And if you want, as a new leader, create a little bit of a checklist for the environment. So write down things like, comfortable chairs, comfortable tables. From the HR point of view, if it's a difficult conversation, I put down bottles of water or tissues and different things as well, making sure you have something to write with, to write on, the time aspect, the noise aspect, temperature, aircon, all these little things are very, very useful to consider, especially when you're going through this difficult conversation. Be confident, but empathetic. So making sure, again, I've worked for a lot of people who try and go into the meetings and become overly confident and almost bullish on the fact that they will either label their experience or they will label their years teaching, or they'll come in with a point to prove as a new leader, or quite the opposite. But again, it's just about connecting. It isn't about talking about your own kind of background qualifications or how they should agree with you immediately. It's about having an open and honest conversation. Remember to listen. In the last article, it also said about active listening. So again, very, very important. It isn't just about talking about what you believe the solution should be or the next steps. It's about giving them a safe space, a comfortable space to listen. Discuss possible solutions. There might be some kind of opportunity in the conversation to adapt and then list some potential solutions that then make both parties happy. Don't forget yourself, again, making sure that you are talking from a kind of a first person point of view, that you are connecting with the person. We really don't want to hear a kind of the company says, the school says, or we. It's got to be a one-to-one. I believe this, and I'm here today to talk to you. And I think that the person in the conversation would really appreciate that. You don't have to use other people's names. You don't have to use other entities to try and add weight to your conversation. Reflect on the conversation as well. Make sure that when the conversation's finished, that you will go through, and maybe tick, cross, or question mark different things that you wrote down how well they went. So if you got the environment right, excellent, well done. Keep that environment the same. If you wrote down a good structure for the conversation, how it started, how it ended, you were very happy with the way at the end you said, thank you very much for your time today. We're now going to have a further conversation and then catch up via email or whatever you said. If you felt that went well, again, congratulations. Write that down and keep that for the future. And finally, the third piece of research to use, 13 tips. Have the conversation as soon as possible. Determine the goals of the conversation. Again, this is something that's come in the past. Choose a good location for the conversation. Listen with an open mind. Offer empathy. Use resolution-oriented thinking. So again, we look to solve these issues. Speak using first-person language. Again, mentioned in the past. Use ADREM strategies. So to the point. ADREM to the point, and basically making sure that you talk about the tough situation. You talk about the conflict. You talk about the incident. You talk about the point of why you are here for. We've all sat in meetings where you can sit for 15, 20 minutes and they talk around the outside of the actual situation. Or what is quite common is 10 minutes at the start of a meeting on other other issues without getting to the meat of the conversation. Number 9, ask questions and practice active listening. Active listening is absolutely paramount. Again, click on some of the videos for active listening if you want more ideas for that. Manage your emotions. As if you are the person that is leading this meeting, then you set the tone for the meeting. So you need to be calm, you need to be professional, you need to be positive, in ensuring that you give the other person to speak. And again, it might navigate through kind of different emotions, attacks. It might navigate through problems. It's about you setting the tone, being clear, having a real kind of structure, and knowing exactly how you want that meeting to finish. Know when to take a break and establish a follow-up protocol. Congratulations at the end of the meeting, but making sure that as you pat yourself on the back, that you also plan to have a follow-up, either in the form of an email and a drop-in, or an email drop-in, a quick conversation, another meeting, some evidence, a task to complete and share with you, an agreement, something like that as a follow-up protocol. At the bottom of each slide on the bottom right, I've got the links to the articles as well. You never really understand a person until you consider things from their point of view. So as a summary, again, this is my kind of experience, summarizing all those issues and adding more. Before I start the 8-point summary, what I would often say to people, and I put this inside of number 3, what I would often say is this: make sure that before you dive into planning a meeting or deciding to have a meeting, that you've looked at policies at school, and that you've considered speaking to the HR manager as well. So the policies at school that you should be very familiar with, things like the grievance policy, whistleblowing policy, complaints policy. All of these are slightly different. Some of them pertain to staff. Some of them are used for parents. Some of them have stages. Some of them are linked to disciplinary policies as well. So please make sure that you read through all of the policies, save a copy of the policies as a leader, and make sure you've read through these thoroughly. Then your conversation can fit inside of these policies quite well. So always make sure that you read up on the policies at school. So the overall summary, you can use this as your kind of checklist. Have the conversation promptly, have that conversation early. The situation will rarely go away. It will more than likely become worse. It might involve other people. It might then have a knock-on impact to the rest of the school. So have the conversation early. Number 2, plan the location. I've mentioned a mini checklist will be really useful, and I've used this several times for things like a bottle of water, some tissues, chairs, aircon, table, something to write with, the time. Are you going to get disturbed? Is it a good time for them? Are they rushing off? Do you need somebody else in the meeting as well? All of these things that you can really fully prepare, because if you get all of that right, I honestly believe it's a good 10, 20% of the meeting organized already. Focus and prepare. So you can plan your meeting. You can then go and then use your strategies to focus. It could be a few minutes reading over your notes. That's what I do personally. Or it could be to pop out for a quick glass of water, or walk around, some quiet time, anything to help you get into that kind of zone to then be fully focused in the meeting. Planning the meeting structure, checking the policies, as I've mentioned, key points, start and end. For the key points, what you would normally look at is how the meeting would start, the purpose of the meeting. You would look at the incident that you're here to discuss, the start, the middle, and the end. And the middle would include 4, 5, 6 below, and ensuring that you're taking notes. And at the end of the meeting, also making sure that you have a script, or you know exactly what you're going to say to thank everyone for their time and what the follow-up will be. Other than that, I think that it's very difficult to create a script for all of the words that you'll say. Create an opportunity to slow down, listen to the other person's perspective. What do they feel is the issue? It could be a good time inside of your meeting structure to plan 5 or 6 minutes to think, hold on, we're going to listen to that person and really identify what it is that they're upset about, making sure that you steer the conversation objectively, onto incidents or a situation without having a personal attack on different people. If that is not possible, making sure that you're writing the points down and that you are getting an accurate picture overall of what the issue is. If you feel at that point you can proceed, if you feel that the issue is more serious than you thought it was originally, or that you think actually this has escalated to another part of the policy, you could take a break and you could reconvene and you could say at this point, thank you very much. We've now listed the points, and this is bigger, or this relates directly to one of the stages in the disciplinary policy or the grievance policy. And what we'll do is we'll get back to you and you can go through the ending then, or you can continue. And if you continue, you can talk about the facts, you can talk about a common goal, and then you can be objective when making notes. Use active listening, as I've mentioned, compassion, because we want overall there to be a resolution and want everyone to be on the same side, aligned together. Even if people agree or disagree, as long as there's a reason behind all of it, that is professionally what you were aiming for. Summarize the conversation and the next steps for everyone. It isn't just about the person you're speaking to. You could have next steps as well. It could be as simple as that you will go and check in with them, or that you will arrange a suitable time next week to catch up, or you will create an email with some links to help them, or you will give them some resources. You may have action points as well. That way it feels like a team resolution to the issue as well. Reflect, learn, and follow up the conversation. The key is following up the conversation, making sure that you've checked, making sure that you've followed up, and that you have done exactly what you're going to say. And this in turn builds trust. Okay, so 5 final takeaways after that list that you could hopefully use. If you're interested in reading further, I highly recommend Sheila, Heen and Stone. Thanks for the feedback. I put a link in there, which again is in the is in the section of the video as well. Difficult Conversations, again, Stone, Patton and Heen, excellent book to look through. That's in the main part of the video as well below. Crucial Conversations by Grenny, Deadly by Brené Brown, which a lot of you probably have heard of, 4 excellent books. And then obviously, Difficult Conversations Don't Have to Be Difficult, Gordon and Kelly, a huge bestseller. So 5 different books for you to consider, or even kind of different viewpoints. Have a look. You can download these, you can purchase them, and then see which one will fit what your approach is. And then again, these will just do nothing but help. Okay, that's the end of this video today. I hope it's given you a few ideas on how to manage difficult conversations and conflicts in the workplace. If you have any further questions or anything that I've mentioned so far, and you'd like to get in touch, please don't hesitate to email me or contact me via social media. It's been really enjoyable talking through this today with you, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you very much. Goodbye.